So is there a surround sound AV receiver that actually sounds more like a hi-fi stereo amplifier and has all the immersive surround sound stuff all in one? Well, coming up, we've got a unit that might just be ticking all the boxes. Hey guys, Scott Rogan here, founder and head designer of Rogue Home Cinema. On this channel, we're all about professional, real cinema in your own home. I've been in the industry for 20 years now, since VHS and DVD, all the way through to today's commercial quality standards for your own home. So if you want to stay across it, remember to hit that subscribe button. So you might have an existing cinema with an older AVR or processor that doesn't have the latest 3D or immersive surround sound like Dolby Atmos. Also, to get the Ultra HD, the 4K picture up to the projector or TV, you need to go through a processor. And if this guy is not up to date, you're going to miss out on the video magic as well. So there's lots of reasons to upgrade into a brand new AVR. Of course, if you're building a brand new cinema, you want something with all the latest features, the technology to get you there, and the best sound quality. So today I'm joined by the new Arcam AVR 20. I'm going to have this one for a few weeks, so keep an eye out for some other reviews on how this actually performs. Now, when it comes to big AV receivers, that's all that Arcam does. In fact, their entry-level model, the AVR 10, at about $4,500 Aussie, is where most AV receivers kind of top out towards flagship level. In fact, the AVR 20 here at $7,500 is only halfway up the range, with the big AVR 30 model around $11,000, topping out $10,000 for an AV receiver. Not many brands really go there at all. So we know Arcam have a really serious lineup. So what is it that's important on an AV receiver that needs to tick the boxes? Well, first of all, there's the HDMI format, the hardware connectivity. And we've got the AVR 20 and 30, which has 7 HDMIs in, 2 outputs, and a third HDMI output for the Zone 2 area. All HDMI inputs are HDMI 2.0B, which means it's fully compatible with all the immersive sound and the 4K 60Hz HDR UHD video, which we need and want. The AVR 10, however, has the 7 HDMI in, still at 2.0 spec, that has the 2 outputs for the single zone only. The other critical component of a great AV receiver is going to be the DSP, or the digital sound processing. Now, I see this in 3 different ways. We're going to have the codecs, what it can decode. We're going to have the room correction, and then finally the DACs, which is converting all of that digital sound into a waveform that the power amp and the speaker can actually produce sound on. The audio codecs across the whole HDA Arcam range are the same. The little model, so to speak, little model, all the way through to the big AV40, the dedicated processor unit, all have Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, Auro 3D, which I love for music, and IMAX enhanced. Room EQ is a really big deal. Doesn't matter how well you've treated and controlled the room, there's still going to be elements that DSP, or the room EQ correction system, can touch up and get better. Now, Arcam have gone for the Direct Live system, which is a really high quality program. We see brands like Wisdom, Theta Digital, Datasat, some really serious audiophile high-end brands all use Direct Live for one good reason: it's a very, very good system. Now, what's super cool is Direct has added some extra features, in particular the bass management system, which is available for the Arcam series, although that comes via an upgrade with Direct. I'll be testing with and without with this unit in the coming weeks. Good room EQ, you do need a decent microphone. Some of the Odyssey mics and things we see with the Denon Marantz are not super flash. The Anthem Arc system has a beautiful microphone actually, and this one is better than average. It's a little plastic case unit here, though it looks like it's a bit more serious than the little mics that we see with Odyssey. There's even potential I'm going to find out soon whether I can use my Pro microphones into the Dirac system rather than using this one. But being a USB microphone or mine analog, this is likely going to be the way to go. Of course, each microphone does have a calibration file, so this has been tested and verified. So anything that isn't quite right about it has been mapped and will be filtered in or factored in to the final calibration. So once all this digital work is done, it needs to turn into an analog waveform. So that is in the way of the DA converter or the DAC, something found in any quality CD player, of course hi-fi DAC, and in every single cinema processor times many channels. Unlike a CD player, it just has 2. With the AVR 20 here, we've actually got 16 DACs on board. The AVR 10 is an 11.1 processor. AVR 20 and 30 are actually 15.1, and of course the AV40, the big processor model, is the same again with a 15.1 channels of output. So the processor really is the brains of the operation and allows us to connect as many speakers as we might require. So up to 16 in these models is pretty epic, particularly for one row of seats. That means you could run the traditional LCRs, surrounds and backs. You can add in the front wide channels, which I love. You can then run not just front and rear Atmos channels, you could run wides as well while still having a subwoofer channel. That's a lot of channels for a single row cinema, and let's face it, it's also very awesome. Of all 16 of those channels, you can configure it different ways. You don't need to have wides and Atmos mids. You can actually choose to run more subwoofer outputs, which in the way of a multi-sub, particularly with the Dirac Live multi-sub management system, that's going to be really powerful. But if you are a big fan of extra effects channels, then the 0.1 soundtrack, you may just need some off-board DSP, something like a mini DSP, to manage your quad subwoofer arrangement or as many subs as you're running, which means you're going to miss out on quite the advanced level of the Dirac Live bass management. You'll have to do a bit of manual work, but hey, it will give you the extra channels throughout. So what sort of power are we actually getting out of the Arcams? Well, the AVR 10 is 80 watts, 2 channels running. The AVR 20 here is actually giving us 110, while the big G-class AVR 30 models 120. Now, it might not sound like massive power differences, but you need to remember that G-class, that power rating of a 120, I feel sounds more like 180. That's the realistic drive that G-Class gives you. Now, I haven't got the AVR 30 here, but I have listened to the AVR 850, which was last year's model. And we compared that to what was the middle class AV receiver, and I can tell you it absolutely came alive. The power in that G-Class really is something special, so don't let the figures on the paper fool you for just how much more grunt you get. Now, like most AV receivers, we do get at least a proper 2-channel power rating. That is, only 2 amplifiers running at full bandwidth, at full output, all off that one big power supply. Now, what most AV receiver brands don't give you is what power you actually get when all of the amplifiers are running at once. Arcam does. The AVR 10 gives us 60 watts per channel flat out. This AVR 20 here gives us 90 watts of power for each speaker, and the big G-Class model still gives us 100 watts full output over all amplifiers running at once. Now, of course, being surround sound, we don't realistically need that much power from every amplifier at any given time, but we absolutely need the grunt for our LCR channels, which means we're going to be really pulling at least 3 of these amplifiers are going to be under high demand often. Then for the rest of the effects channels, they're probably only running around 25%. What's good to know is just how much output we're still giving us, which gives us an indication of just how much reserve and current, and therefore you would expect a high quality, smooth, spacious sound from this amplifier, which really can be seen from its Hi-Fi series, or we're getting that flavor from the Hi-Fi series in this model. How would you use the Arcams in a practical usage? Well, like most AV receivers, the main 5 amplifiers on the front end are fixed. That is, the main 5 amps will only drive LCRs, left, center, right, surrounds and backs, with the final 2 channels on board these units assignable for either surround backs, Atmos heights, bi-amp to run more power up the front, or in the case of the AVR 20 and 30, you could choose to use that as a zone 2 zone. Now that's all really handy, but what if you wanted to run a separate power amplifier to run more power for the front end, which is usually the case? Well, it means buying an extra 3+ channel power amplifier and doing away with the amps on board. I'd really love to have those amps reassignable so you could continue to add more power up the front while opening up more amplifiers to be utilized for extra effects channels. So that means something like an AVR 20, to take advantage of all those processing channels, you're going to need a power amplifier for the extra effects, the wides and the Atmos fronts, mids and rears. So how would you use each model in the range? Well, the AVR 10 gives you beautiful sonic hi-fi sound with a decent amount of power, but not enough to go reference level in a small to medium sized room, Evan. But if you just want good immersive effects without hitting big levels, the AVR 10 will be great, and I'll just utilize all 7 channels on board. You might just stick to the base layer, going 7.1, or a great value way to go would be 5.1.2, where you get a bit of Atmos effects channels up the top. All in the one box, you're good to go. You don't need to buy extra power amplifiers and boxes. Great value way to get a musical surround sound experience in like a media room or a small theater. So the AVR 20 here could be seen a few different ways. One, you could see it simply as a beautiful 2-channel integrated amplifier. 2, of course, is surround sound amplifier, which it absolutely is. But also 3, a really great 16-channel processor, particularly with the Direct Live on board. It makes this, for its price point in particular, quite a unique product. And of course, the 7 channels on power amp on board, it can be seen as a bit of a bonus. But you do need to remember that the amps on board here are pre-assigned for the LCRs, so if you do go some big power amps up front, then you'll be really left with the surrounds and the backs running from this unit, while you then look for another power amp to run the Atmos array, front mids and rears, and then the front wides. So to really flash out all 16 channels, you're likely going to have another 2 boxes go with it. But that's no different to any other big immersive surround sound combo anyway. Then we have the AVR 30, the big G-class monster. Now this has some serious power amplification on board. Like I was saying, really the 120 watts of G-class is going to feel and sound more like 180, dare I say it, even 200 watts of amplifier. So going for one of those, I'd suspect you're going to use the amplification on board for sure, which means really running your LCRs, your surrounds and your backs all off the big G-class power, which leaves you looking for maybe an 8-channel power amp to round out the system to fill in the wides, Atmos fronts, mids and backs, and you've got yourself a really stunning, very high resolution, very strong sounding system out of that. So guys, 3 beautiful new AVRs to hit the market, and really a very different quality and concept of build from what we see from the competition. Arcam really does sit in the middle from your typical AV receiver brand before you're starting to hit the real high end. So I got the AVR 20 here for the next few weeks. I'm going to hook it up, run the Dirac, test it over a few different systems. In fact, I'm going to test it in our enterprise cinema here in Perth in both 5.2.2 with our Triad Bronze system and in our as a processor with the Theory audio. And this is going to be up against the Acris Muse processor which is a serious unit, and we're going to compare it to the Anthem and the Denon AVRs, which we just reviewed last month. So this thing's got some real hard work to do, and it's really interesting that it's talented enough to really even be considered as a processor for the Theory system. You're going to want to check that one out. We're going to see if the Arcam new HDA series really does look like it's up for that high-end audiophile level of sound quality that it's promising. So guys, I want to know, do you enjoy your music in your home cinema room as well? Or is it more about just getting the absolute highest resolution for your cinema experience? Just remember to keep across everything high-end professional cinema at home. Remember to subscribe and check out our website for more designs and services to achieve awesome cinema at home for you as well. Thanks a lot for watching, and remember, with great cinema at home on any day, reality can go rogue.